David Thompson, a Chicago tycoon, had built a real estate empire, but lived in solitude, shadowed by the loss of his twin brother Nathan. One stormy night, his car failed him, leading him to a dilapidated community center where he found two 5-year-old twins, Ethan and Lucas, abandoned and afraid. Their desperate pleas stirred something deep within David, drawing him into their lives. As he fought to shield them, he uncovered a startling connection to Nathan, igniting a clash with his sister Lauren, who'd do anything to protect their family's wealth. When Lucas faced a dire illness, David staked everything, his fortune, his company, his name, to save him. But could the truth about the boys mend more than their broken family? Would David find the strength to redefine his legacy, or would hidden truths destroy them? Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Get ready for a story that'll seize your heart. David Thompson clutched his phone, skimming emails as rain pounded his BMW, stranded on a shadowed Chicago street in Inglewood. At 50, he'd transformed Thompson Properties into a juggernaut, amassing millions while isolating himself in a sleek Lincoln Park penthouse. Work was his refuge, a barrier against the pain of losing Nathan in a hiking accident years ago. Tonight, his driver, Mark Evans, broke the quiet. "Dead, sir. Tow's coming, but it's going to take time." David exhaled, his polished facade masking frustration. "All right, I'll wait in that building." He gestured toward a weathered sign, Englewood Community Hub. Umbrella in hand, he stepped out, his dress shoes splashing in a puddle. The hub's dim lights and chipped paint screamed neglect, a far cry from his immaculate world. Inside, the air was musty, the lobby cluttered with mismatched chairs and a lone receptionist lost in forms. Before David could speak, the door flew open. A man in his 30s stormed out, dragging two small boys by their wrists. The twins, about 5, had dark curls and wide, terrified eyes. "I'm through," the man yelled, voice raw. "Your mom's gone, and I didn't ask for this." The boys clung together, their thin coats drenched. One cried, "Please, don't go," while the other stood rigid, clutching a worn, stuffed dinosaur. David's chest tightened. The crying boy, Ethan, he'd later learn, reached for the man's leg, only to be pushed away. The silent one, Lucas, stared blankly, his dinosaur pressed tight. The scene struck David like a blow, stirring a memory of Nathan's warm smile, long buried. He stepped forward instinctively. "You can't just leave them," he said, his tone cutting through the chaos. The man whirled, defiance in his eyes, but wavered under David's tailored authority. "They ain't mine," he muttered. "Their mom's dead. I tried, but I'm done." He vanished into the storm, leaving the boys shaking. A woman in a frayed jacket, Sarah Mitchell, a social worker, hurried from the back, her face a mix of exhaustion and anger. "You can't do this," she shouted after him, but he was gone. Sarah knelt by the boys, her voice gentle. "It's okay, Ethan, Lucas. We'll sort this out." Her eyes, though, betrayed panic. The hub was underfunded, its resources scarce. David overheard a passerby mutter, "Kids like that, just trouble brewing." The words stung, revealing a harsh truth. In Inglewood, orphaned kids were often invisible, dismissed by a fractured system. Ethan's sobs quieted, but Lucas's silence was deafening, his gaze fixed on the floor. David crouched, ignoring the damp seeping into his trousers. "What's your name, kid?" he asked softly. Ethan sniffled. "I'm Ethan. That's Lucas." Lucas didn't look up, but his grip on the dinosaur tightened. Something in their faces, the curve of their jaws, the fear in their eyes, felt eerily familiar, like an echo of Nathan. Sarah stood, brushing her hands on her jeans. "Mr. Thompson, I appreciate your concern, but we have rules. These boys need proper placement." Her tone was firm, but her weary posture told another story. David glanced at the boys, then back at her. "And how long will that take?" "They're wet and scared. They're coming with me tonight." Sarah hesitated, studying him. "You don't know how messy this gets." David straightened, his boardroom confidence surging. "I'll handle messy. Get the forms." He didn't know why he was doing this. He, a man who dodged kids like unscheduled calls. But walking away felt like betraying Nathan again. Mark approached, his salt and pepper hair damp. "Sir, Toe's here. You sure about this?" David nodded, jaw set. "Prep the car, Mark. We're taking them home." Mark raised an eyebrow but stayed quiet, catching a spark of something new in David's eyes. Determination, perhaps hope. As they moved to the BMW, Ethan clung to Lucas's hand, their small forms dwarfed by the storm. David opened the door, his voice softer. "Come on, you two, let's get you dry." Lucas finally met his gaze, his eyes wide but briefly open. In that instant, David felt a crack in the walls around his heart, a whisper of purpose he'd forgotten. The car pulled away, the hub fading into the night. David glanced at the boys in the back seat, their faces pressed to the window. His phone buzzed. A sharp email from Lauren, his sister and CFO, about a deal unraveling. He muted it. For the first time in years, something outweighed Thompson Properties. What that meant, he didn't know. But as Ethan whispered to Lucas, "Is this man nice?" David knew he was about to find out. David Thompson's Lincoln Park penthouse gleamed with chrome and glass, but it felt like a showroom, cold, untouched. As he led Ethan and Lucas inside, their sneakers squeaked on the marble, their eyes darting from the skylight to the leather sofas. Ethan gripped Lucas's hand, whispering, "Is this a castle?" Lucas, still clutching his dinosaur, stayed silent, staring at the floor. Mark, now plain housekeeper, appeared with hot chocolate, his usual reserve softening. "Figured they'd need warming, sir," he said, placing mugs down. David nodded at a loss. Kids were foreign territory. He built towers, not connections. Yet here he was, tasked with 2 5-year-olds left behind. "Drink up," David said, his tone stiffer than intended. Ethan hesitated, then sipped, his face brightening. "It's yummy." Lucas followed, cautious, like he expected the mug to disappear. David watched, a pang hitting him. When had he last noticed something as simple as a kid's joy? He pushed the thought aside, focusing on logistics. The next morning, David met Sarah Mitchell at the Inglewood Community Hub to begin temporary guardianship. Sarah, in a faded sweater and messy ponytail, handed him forms. "This isn't just paper, Mr. Thompson," she said, eyes serious. "Ethan and Lucas have been through 4 foster homes. People see them as burdens, not children. The system's stretched, and Inglewood gets the leftovers." David frowned, her words sinking in. "They're not burdens. They're kids." Sarah studied him, then nodded. "Good. They need someone who gets that, but it's tough. The state's strict about custody, especially for boys like them." Her tone hinted at the bias that branded kids from tough areas as trouble before they could prove otherwise. Back at the penthouse, David navigated new terrain. Breakfast was chaos. He scorched the eggs, spilled milk, and realized he lacked kid-friendly food. Ethan giggled at the mess, but Lucas stayed quiet, nibbling toast. David tried engaging them. "So, what do you guys do for fun?" Ethan shrugged. "We draw stuff. Mom showed us." Lucas nodded, his first real response. David grabbed paper and markers from his office, and soon the boys were sprawled on the floor, sketching wobbly cars and stick-figure families. That night, Lucas approached David holding out a small, shiny stone. "Mom said it's special," he whispered, barely audible. "You can keep it." David took the stone, its weight grounding him. He slipped it into his pocket, throat tight. "Thanks, Lucas. I'll keep it safe." For the first time, trust flickered in Lucas's eyes, fragile but real. Trouble brewed, though. Lauren Thompson, David's sister and CFO, stormed into the penthouse, her stilettos clicking sharply. "David, what's this?" she demanded, eyeing the boys building a blanket fort with Mark. "You're playing dad while our investors panic?" Her tone dripped scorn, and Ethan shrank back, sensing the tension. Lucas's grip on his dino. "They're not props," David snapped, patience fraying. "They were abandoned, Lauren. I'm giving them a home." Lauren's eyes narrowed. "You're a CEO, not a nanny. This is foolish. The board's already doubting you after that failed merger. And what if these kids are a con? You're a target." David's jaw clenched. "They're 5. They're not conning anyone." But Lauren's words sowed doubt, not about the boys, but her intentions. She'd always guarded the family wealth, rooted in their father's gritty rise. Was she protecting the money or something deeper? The next day, David took the boys to a toy store to cheer them up. Ethan bounced, picking a robot toy, while Lucas chose a sketch pad, fingers lingering on the blank pages. At the register, a woman muttered, "Kids like that don't fit here." David's blood boiled. He turned, voice low but firm. "They fit wherever I take them." The woman flushed and scurried off, but the encounter left a bitter sting. Society's judgment trailed the boys, marking them as outcasts for their roots. Back home, David found an old photo in a drawer, him and Nathan at a river, arms around each other, laughing like they ruled the world. Ethan's giggle from the living room echoed Nathan's, and Lucas's quiet focus mirrored his brother's intensity. The resemblance was striking. Could they be tied to Nathan? He recalled Nathan's work with a conservation group where he'd met a woman named Claire Harris. Was she their mother? He called Sarah, who confirmed Claire was the boy's mom, a single parent killed in a crash. "She never named the father," Sarah said. "The boys have no one." David's mind raced. Nathan kept his love life private, but the timing and resemblance felt like more than chance. He needed answers, but first, he needed to be the protector Ethan and Lucas deserved. That night, as he tucked the boys into guest room beds, Ethan asked, "Are we staying here for real?" His voice wavered, braced for rejection. David knelt, meeting his eyes. "As long as you need, I promise." Lucas, silent until now, touched David's hand, a tiny gesture that nearly undid him. As he dimmed the light, the stone in his pocket felt like a vow. One he wasn't sure he could keep, but one he'd fight for. Lauren's warnings echoed, and the world judged the boys harshly, but in that quiet moment, David felt a shift. These kids weren't just a duty. They were a chance to rebuild what he'd lost. He just didn't know how much it would cost, or what secrets lay in wait. David Thompson sat at his desk, the stone from Lucas beside an old letter he'd found in a dusty box. The letter, worn and faded, was from Nathan to Claire Harris, brimming with love and plans cut short. "I'll always come back to you," Nathan wrote. David's throat tightened. Had Nathan known Claire was pregnant? Were Ethan and Lucas his sons? The question consumed him, but answers seemed distant. He hired Brian Foster, a private investigator, to probe Claire's past, seeking the truth. Life with the boys found a delicate rhythm. David mastered pancakes, lumpy but edible, and turned a penthouse corner into an art nook for Lucas and a robot workshop for Ethan. Their laughter warmed the once sterile space, but David sensed their wary hearts, scarred by foster homes. Sarah Mitchell visited often, her kind smile a lifeline. "They're trusting you," she said one day. "That's huge for kids like them." But the world wasn't gentle. Sarah shared tales of foster parents who'd rejected the boys, calling them too hard or broken. David's jaw tightened. "They're not broken," he said sharply. "They're kids." Sarah nodded, her eyes tired. "The system doesn't always agree. Inglewood's kids get the short end." Her words burned, a reminder of the unfairness that clung to the boys. David's resolve hardened, but Lauren's interference grew. She called constantly, her tone cold. "You're tossing our legacy for two random kids," she snapped in one heated call. "The board's watching, David. Keep this up and you're done." Her words echoed their father's ruthless code, family wealth above all. But David doubted her motives. Something about her urgency felt off, like she was hiding more than business worries. Was she scared of what Brian might uncover? One evening, David took the boys to a park near the penthouse. Ethan raced ahead, chasing a squirrel, while Lucas sketched a bird, his pencil steady. A passerby muttered, "Those kids don't belong here with him." David's fists clenched, but he held back, not wanting to alarm the boys. The judgment was constant, branding Ethan and Lucas as unworthy of his world. That night, as David read a robot book to Ethan, Lucas tugged his sleeve. "Can you tell us about your brother?" he asked softly. David froze, Nathan's loss rushing back. He forced a smile. "Nathan was bold. Loved hiking, saving the earth. He'd have liked you too." Ethan's eyes lit up. "Did he draw like Lucas?" David nodded, the resemblance striking again. "Yeah, he did." The next day, crisis hit. During an art class Sarah arranged at the hub, Lucas collapsed, his sketchpad hitting the floor. David raced to the hospital, heart pounding, as doctors swarmed. Ethan clung to his hand, tears falling. "Is Lucas going to be okay?" he asked, voice breaking. David knelt, holding him tight. "We'll make sure he is." Dr. Emily Chen, a hematologist, delivered the news. Acute leukemia, aggressive and advanced. Lucas needed a bone marrow transplant, urgently. David's world spun. "Test Ethan," he said instantly. "They're twins." But Dr. Chen shook her head. "They're fraternal twins, not identical. Ethan's not a match." The words hit hard. Fraternal twins shared less DNA, explaining Ethan's dimples and Lucas's quieter nature, but crushing hopes of a quick fix. The hospital's red tape worsened the pain. Without insurance, Lucas's care was delayed until David paid up front. "This shouldn't happen," he told Sarah, voice tight. "No kid should wait because of money." Sarah sighed. "That's Inglewood's truth. The poor get left behind." Her words fueled David's anger at a world that let kids like Lucas fall through the cracks. That night, David sat by Lucas's bedside, the boy's small frame lost in tubes and monitors. Ethan curled up nearby, refusing to leave. David's hand rested on Lucas's, his mind racing. He needed a donor, but the registry offered slim odds. "Test me," he told Dr. Chen the next day. She hesitated. "An unrelated adult matching is rare, Mr. Thompson." He met her gaze, firm. "Do it anyway." As the hospital's hum faded, David reread Nathan's letter, tracing the words. If Ethan and Lucas were Nathan's sons, their father might hold the key to saving Lucas. But Nathan was gone, or was he? The boys' faces, their quirks, kept pulling David back to his twin. He called Brian. "Focus on Claire Harris," he said. "Find out if she and Nathan were together when she got pregnant." Ethan stirred, his voice cutting through. "Mr. David, will you leave if Lucas is sick?" The question pierced David's heart. He knelt by Ethan. "No way, buddy. I'm here for you both, no matter what." Ethan's lip quivered. "Everybody leaves." David hugged him, voice fierce. "Not me. I promise." Lucas moaned softly, stirring. David sat between the boys, one hand on each, the stone in his pocket a quiet anchor. Lauren's warnings, the hospital's failures, and Nathan's mystery loomed, but nothing mattered more than keeping his promise. Lucas's life hung in the balance, and David would fight to save him, even if it meant unearthing secrets that could change everything. David Thompson sat in the dim hospital room, Lucas's monitors beeping steadily. Ethan slept beside his brother, clutching Lucas's sketchpad. David's mind churned with Brian Foster's report. Claire Harris was Nathan's partner, and after his death, she'd used his stored sample at a fertility clinic to conceive the twins. The truth hit hard. Ethan and Lucas were Nathan's sons, his nephews. But a DNA test David ordered to confirm it came back negative, a result that screamed foul play. Lauren was his prime suspect. He called Brian from the hallway, voice low. "Check Lauren, she's too eager to push these boys out." Brian paused. "Your sister? You sure?" David's jaw tightened. "I'm sure." Lauren's relentless pressure, her access to Thompson Properties' resources, it pointed to her. If she'd rigged the DNA test, she was hiding something big. Back in the room, Lucas stirred, eyes opening. "Mr. David?" he whispered, voice faint. David leaned in, forcing a smile. "Right here, buddy." Lucas's fingers brushed his sketchpad. "I drew for you." Ethan woke, rubbing his eyes, and handed David a folded paper. It was a child's drawing, 3 stick figures under a sun, labeled David, Ethan, and Lucas. Below it read, "We stay together." David's chest ached, the drawing a beacon in the storm. "This is amazing," he said, voice thick. "We're a team, okay?" Sarah arrived, worry etched on her face. "The state's fighting your guardianship," she said. "They say a single man with no parenting experience isn't ideal. It's absurd, but that's the system." David's anger flared. They're judging me because I'm not married? What about the boys? They need stability. Sarah sighed. They see kids like Ethan and Lucas as risks, not priorities. Inglewood's kids rarely get a fair shot. The injustice burned, strengthening David's resolve. He wouldn't let red tape break this family. Brian called later, voice urgent. Found something. The lab that ran your DNA test, Lauren sent them 15 grand before the results. She's hiding something big. David's blood chilled. Lauren wasn't just guarding the family wealth. She was erasing the boys' claim to it. He recalled Nathan's will, mentioning a trust for future children. If Ethan and Lucas were Nathan's, they'd inherit a share of Thompson Properties, threatening Lauren's control. David confronted Lauren at Thompson Properties' sleek office, the Chicago skyline a sharp backdrop. The boardroom was tense, investors murmuring about David's obsession. Lauren stood tall, her voice icy. "You're risking everything," she said. "These kids are dragging you down, and the board agrees." "No more lies," David snapped, slamming the falsified DNA report down. "You paid off the lab." "Why, Lauren? What's so terrifying?" The room hushed, board members shifting nervously. Lauren's composure faltered, her voice low. "You don't understand, David. Dad scraped to build this. I won't let it be split for kids we can't confirm are Nathan's." "They're his," David said, unwavering. "Claire used Nathan's sample after he died, and since Nathan and I were identical twins, my DNA matches theirs biologically. I'm their father as much as he was." The board gasped, the truth landing hard. Lauren's face paled. "You can't prove it without another test," she stammered. "Then I'll get one," David said. "But listen, if you ever harm these boys again, you're done, family or not." He turned to the board, voice rising. "And if you think I'm unfit to lead because I'm fighting for my nephews, fire me. I'll walk, but they come with me." The room buzzed, some nodding, others stunned. Lauren's eyes glistened, but she stayed silent, her quiet louder than any defense. Back at the hospital, Lucas's condition stabilized, his strength returning. Ethan colored beside him, both boys glancing at David with trust. "You okay?" David asked, sitting between them. Ethan nodded, then paused. "Miss Sarah said people don't want us because we're from Englewood. Is that true?" The question cut deep, exposing society's cruel labels. David took Ethan's hand. "Those people are wrong. You're wanted. By me. By Lucas. By everyone who counts." Sarah arrived, her face grim. "The state's still pushing back, but I found a judge who'll hear you." "It's a long shot, but we'll fight," David nodded, mind racing. The system's bias against single men and kids from rough areas was a hurdle he'd have to clear. He looked at Lucas, whose hand rested on the sun drawing, and felt a surge of purpose. These boys weren't just Nathan's legacy, they were his. That night, David stayed late, the hospital's hum constant. He rolled the stone Lucas gave him between his fingers. Lauren's betrayal, the board's doubts, the state's resistance. It loomed large. But the boys' faces, their trust, their drawing grounded him. He'd fight for them, no matter the cost. The truth was out, but the battle wasn't over. Could he save Lucas and secure their future? Or would secrets and systems win? David Thompson stood in the hospital's cold prep room, his gown too thin for the chill. The bone marrow donation for Lucas was imminent, and though the procedure was safe, its weight was heavy. Lucas's leukemia demanded a match, and miraculously, David's DNA, identical to Nathan's, made him the donor. Saving Lucas was more than medical. It was a vow to honor Nathan and keep his word to the boys. But the cost was mounting. Dr. Emily Chen briefed him, voice steady. "You'll be sore for days, maybe weeks. No stress, no heavy lifting." David nodded, but stress was inescapable. Lauren's betrayal had rocked Thompson Properties, and the board was poised to remove him. Sarah's latest update wasn't hopeful. The state still opposed his guardianship, citing his unconventional status. Society's rules seemed stacked against Ethan and Lucas, and David was done playing along. The night before the procedure, David sat between the boys' beds. Lucas, pale but awake, gave a faint smile. "Will it hurt?" he asked, voice small. David squeezed his hand. "A bit, but it's worth it to get you better." Ethan, on Lucas's bed, added, "You're like a hero, Mr. David." The words warmed David, stirring a feeling he hadn't known in years. "Not a hero," he said, ruffling Ethan's hair. "Just family." After the boys slept, Sarah slipped in, eyes heavy. "You're doing more than most," she said, "but the system's tough on kids like them. I've seen families split over less." David's jaw tightened. "They're staying with me." Sarah nodded, a spark of hope in her gaze. "I know. I'm with you." The donation went well, but recovery was rough. David's body ached, each move a reminder of his sacrifice. The real pain was Thompson Properties. Lauren, seizing his weakness, rallied the board, framing his focus on the boys as reckless. "He's abandoning our legacy," she told investors, her voice sharp. David learned of it from Mark, who'd overheard a board member. "She's pushing a vote to oust you," Mark said grimly. "Your move, sir?" David acted fast. Still weak, he called an emergency board meeting. Facing Lauren's cold gaze and the board's doubt, he stood tall. "You think I'm distracted?" he said, voice firm despite the pain. "I'm building something greater than buildings. A family. If that's not leadership, fire me. But I'm done letting wealth define me." The room went quiet. Some board members shifted, others nodded, moved by his resolve. Lauren's face was unreadable, her silence heavy. Back at the hospital, Lucas improved daily, his color returning as the transplant worked. One day he sat up, sketching. "Look," he said, showing David a drawing of a man in a cape, labeled David. Below, Lucas wrote, "My hero." David's eyes stung. "You're the hero, kid," he said, voice cracking. Ethan chimed in, "Yeah, Lucas is tough, and you're tough too." The boy's trust was a treasure, one David vowed to earn daily. But the world pushed back. A news outlet ran a story questioning David's motives, calling his guardianship a stunt and his hospital donations extravagant. The article cited an anonymous source, likely Lauren, claiming he was wasting company funds on charity cases. David's anger flared, but Sarah's words steadied him. "They fear change. Keep going." The criticism revealed a truth. Society expected the rich to hoard, not give, especially not to kids from Englewood. David made a bold move. He sold a chunk of his personal wealth to create the Nathan Thompson Foundation, supporting orphaned kids and leukemia research. "This is for Nathan," he told Mark, signing the papers, "and every kid like Ethan and Lucas." The foundation's first grant went to the Englewood Community Hub, ensuring kids had meals, books, and hope. Sarah, managing the grant, teared up. "You're changing lives, David." Lauren's next move was cruel. She leaked internal emails, framing David's recovery absence as neglect. The board called a vote, and David faced a choice: fight for his CEO role or focus on the boys. He chose the boys, stepping down. "Thompson Properties will go on," he told Mark, "but those boys need me now." Mark, ever loyal, smiled. "You're honoring Nathan, sir." Sarah guided David through the guardianship battle. "The judge is open," she said, "but you'll need to prove you're their family, not just a donor." David nodded, the sun drawing in his wallet. He met the judge, presenting Lucas's sketches and Ethan's tales of their new life. "They're my nephews," he said, voice steady. "Blood or not, they're mine." As Lucas grew stronger, David took the boys to the penthouse's rooftop, their laughter ringing under the stars. Ethan pointed at the skyline. "Is that all yours?" David chuckled. "Not anymore. But you two? You're worth more than all of it." Lucas slipped his hand into David's, a quiet thank you. The stone in David's pocket felt heavier, a reminder of the family he'd fought for and the battles ahead. Lauren's shadow lingered, and the state's ruling loomed. Could David keep this fragile family whole, or would the world's judgment tear them apart? David Thompson stood in the backyard of his new home, a cozy 2-story in a calm Chicago suburb, far from the Lincoln Park penthouse. The skyscrapers he'd built no longer defined him. The joy of Ethan and Lucas racing through the grass did. Months after leaving Thompson Properties, David had swapped boardrooms for story time, wealth for connection. The Nathan Thompson Foundation was his mission, channeling funds to orphaned kids and leukemia research. Yet, as he watched the boys play, the guardianship battle's uncertainty lingered. The judge's ruling was days away, and Lauren's presence still cast a shadow. Lucas's recovery was a triumph. His once pale cheeks glowed, and his sketches adorned the house, vibrant drawings of birds, robots, and their new family. Ethan, ever watchful, stayed close, his fear of losing Lucas easing but never gone. David felt it too. The stone Lucas gave him a constant in his pocket, a symbol of their bond. But the world kept testing them. Media attacks persisted, calling the foundation a tycoon's fancy, and the boys' charity cases. Sarah Mitchell, now a close friend, brushed it off. "They don't get it," she said. "You're giving those kids a home, not a story." The state's resistance to David's guardianship was the deepest cut. Despite his sacrifices, the system clung to old norms, questioning his role as a single man. "They want a traditional family," Sarah explained, voice tight. "Englewood kids like Ethan and Lucas, they're lucky to get anyone." David's anger surged. "They're not lucky. They deserve better." He poured his energy into the foundation, opening a new Englewood hub with art programs, meals, and mentors. A beacon for kids the system forgot. One afternoon, Lauren appeared at the house, unannounced. Her sharp demeanor was gone, replaced by a hesitant posture and weary eyes. Ethan and Lucas froze, recalling her past hostility. David stepped forward, protective. "What do you want, Lauren?" She swallowed, voice soft. "I was wrong, David, about the boys. The DNA, everything. I thought I was protecting Dad's empire, but I forgot what family means." She looked at the boys, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry." Ethan glanced at Lucas, then stepped forward, voice small but steady. "Mom said family fixes things. Are you fixing yours?" Lauren's breath caught, and she nodded. "I'm trying." Lucas, holding his sketch pad, added, "You can draw with us sometime." The simple offer broke the tension. Lauren knelt, tears falling. "I'd love that." David watched, his anger easing. Forgiveness was hard, but the boys' grace showed it was possible. Lauren began volunteering at the Englewood Hub, her skills helping it grow. She and David weren't close, but they were mending, step by step. The boys led the way, their strength a lesson in healing. One evening during a backyard picnic, Ethan and Lucas spread a blanket and placed a small wooden frame on it, a photo of Nathan and Claire, pieced from old images. "We made this," Ethan said proudly, "so they're with us." David knelt beside them, throat tight. The photo captured Nathan's laugh and Claire's kind eyes, a mirror of the boy's spirit. Lucas touched the frame. "Do you think they're glad we're together?" David's eyes burned, Nathan's loss blending with gratitude. "Yeah, buddy, they're glad." He pulled the boys close, tears falling for the first time in years. In that moment, he felt Nathan's presence, not as a ghost, but as a gift. The judge's ruling came the next day. Sarah called, voice trembling with joy. "You got permanent guardianship, David. They're yours." David sank onto the couch, relief overwhelming him. Ethan and Lucas, overhearing, tackled him in a hug, their laughter filling the house. "We're staying forever?" Ethan asked, eyes wide. David nodded, voice hoarse. But the story didn't end there. David knew the boys' journey and his own deserved more than a quiet victory. He decided to share their story, not for fame, but to inspire change. With Sarah's help, he wrote a book, Family Found, detailing their path from that stormy night to their new home. The book exposed the system's flaws, its bias against single guardians, its neglect of kids like Ethan and Lucas, and called for reform. Proceeds went to the Nathan Thompson Foundation, funding scholarships for Englewood kids. The book became a quiet phenomenon, sparking debates on foster care and privilege. Readers wrote to David, sharing stories of their own makeshift families, proving love could thrive in unlikely places. Ethan and Lucas, now thriving in school, loved hearing their story read aloud, especially the part where David became their hero. Lauren, fully committed to the hub, found her own redemption, mentoring kids who reminded her of the boys she'd once dismissed. One evening, David took the boys to the Englewood Hub's new library, where they'd painted a mural, a sun, a robot, and 3 stick figures holding hands. Ethan pointed proudly. "That's us," Lucas grinned. And we're never leaving. David added a star to the mural, smiling. Never, he echoed, heart full. As the sun set, David stood with Ethan and Lucas, their hands in his, the stone in his pocket, the mural on the wall, the laughter around them. It wove a tapestry of family born from loss and love. Lauren's redemption, the hub's impact, and the boy's trust had reshaped his life. He'd lost an empire but gained a purpose. As they walked home under the stars, David knew this was home. Not a place, but a promise kept, a future forged in hope. This story of David, Ethan, and Lucas hits deep because it proves family is built on choices, not just blood. David's shift from a solitary millionaire to a devoted guardian shows true wealth is love, not money. The unfairness Ethan and Lucas faced, judged for their roots, reflects real struggles that fuel debate. Some might say David's sacrifice was reckless, abandoning his empire for kids. Others call it heroic, showing one person can challenge a broken system. What do you think? Did David make the right call, or was the cost too steep? Share below and let's talk. Thanks for diving into this heartfelt tale. Your support means the world. Hit like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Keep spreading hope, and we'll see you next time.